the owner of the house would grab him to beat him or something, he would slip out of his finger because you can't hold on to a greasy. And would you believe that that tactic was used in a military campaign by the Dutch in the Caribbean? They had these, you know, the big galleon ships like Christopher Columbus, and they are constantly, you know, being attacked by pirates and by armies. And so what this one guy, his name was Pete, and his last name was Hein, and they made a song about him. Piet Hein, zijn naam was klein, maar zijn daden waren groot. Piet Hein, his name was small, but his deeds were great. So what he would do is the entire deck of the ship, he would put thick butter and grease on the whole deck of the ship. So while his guys in the bottom with the big guns were shooting and shooting and shooting, the other ships, they come close, they throw the hook, they hook onto your ship, and they all come aboard and they mash up the place. Right. That was the tactic of the day. Right. So what happened then is as they coming over and they hit the deck, they would be like slipping and sliding and falling, and they couldn't stand up and fight. And his men would be up in the mast shooting them from hiding up in the mast. And he won a major battles by using that simple tactic. So Greaseman did the same thing. He greased himself down, you try to grab him and he would just slip and run and be gone.
So what were the stories about Greaseman? I mean, like,
well, there were no stories per se. It's just that Greaseman is in the neighborhood. Be careful. He's going to come around. He's going to try to grab. He was a real thing. Yeah.
Guy who got in what, tar or some type of black grease?
No, it wasn't tar. It was like black greasy because the refinery was close by. Somehow he got a hold of some black grease in one of those conduit pipes going into something, and he would grease up himself before going to commit a robbery. And anybody who tried to hold him, catch him, because in those days, anybody come to commit a crime, the whole village is running after you with machetes and stones and everything, and you'll be running, hauling your ass, and you try to grab him, he just slip, run. And so eventually, I think they caught him, but it was just a warning. Greaseman is in the neighborhood. He robbed somebody last night. Everybody will be shivering nervously. Greaseman, don't think you can catch him. He'll slip right through your fingers. And so if you come home and see some greasy marks, some old Greaseman was here. He might be back. So
did they ever catch Greaseman and he just died somewhere because of the grease?
Maybe he changed his tactics. I don't know what he did. Maybe
I'm sure all that grease poisoned his skin.
Good old Greaseman.
Do they have other stories like that, or other interesting things like that on the island that you can recall?
There was not a whole lot of robbery because there just wasn't, people were not stealing. People were very helpful. You needed something, someone would bring over the fish, some food, and this and that. People were very courteous. There was no metal bars. People left the doors and windows wide open. So
still the fence around the property, though.
Sometimes there was a fence. Many times there was not a fence. Fence cost money. And sometimes the fence was made out of cactus plants. Oh. You know the cactus that grow straight?
Yeah.
They would plant many of them together. Some people were lucky to get a little barbed wire. Some people took plants that had a lot of thorns on it. Flowers, but thorns in between. And they would plant those and so on. But most of the time, you know, the place was wide open. And the crime was not high at all, which was very nice. But when people needed water, they would have to dig a well. Men digging a well, and the well was dug by hand. And you would be way down there digging, pulling up stones and sand with a bucket, until finally the water started appearing.
They would create a well.
You have to create a well by digging that whole thing, making a big round circle, and dig sand until you go way down there. Finally you get to where the water level was, and the water would come up, and then you put a bucket and pull the water up from the well. Well dug. Some of that ground was hard. I looked at some wells, the stone was so hard, like some of those rocks we saw on the beach this morning. Digging through that by hand, to find water, to have a well in your yard to get water. But then they had the sukunya. I told you about the sukunya. The sukunya was a lady who would come to the house. She was like a vampire lady. Come to the house, bite you, suck your blood, and then go. She would bite cows. She would bite people. She was always old and skinny. She was also known as a hex.
A witch?
A witch kind of lady. She drinks the blood of people. Boy, that used to scare the heck out of people. Oh my God.
Sukunya.
And then, how do you know the Sukunya was wrong? Most people had at least 1 or 2 cows. The cow is tied, and they come in the morning, and blood is dripping from the neck of the cow. Oh God, last night the Sukunya came. I went in with Sukunya last night. They bite Albert Haynes' cow. It was terrible. See, everybody's scared to death. And so the plan is, how do you get rid of a Sukunya? Finally, they found out. Some guy came around and saying the only way to get the Sukunya is to get her skin, salt it and pepper it, and then she will die. What do you mean, get her skin? Oh yeah, the Sukunya, before she leaves her, wherever the heck she lives up in the mountains, to come down and suck the cow or suck your people, she would remove her skin. She would hang her skin on a nail or something on the wall, do her things, and then come back and put on her skin. Now that really drove us local. A woman who comes without her skin, sucks your blood, holy shit. So they said, if you find out where she lives, when she is out, she goes every night to suck blood. When she is out sucking blood, you go, you take her skin, and you put salt and pepper on that skin. When she puts it on, it burns her, and she dies. Because if she cannot put on her skin, she will die. And so people were out looking. If they see like an old little outhouse, a shack up in the mountains, they're looking. They got their salt, they got their pepper, they're looking to see if maybe a Sukunya skin is hanging on a nail. It was all mumbo jumbo. Why? The reason the damn cows were bleeding every morning, because we had vampire bats that were biting and sucking the blood. I saw it with my own eyes, sucking. All you see is a black bird on the neck of a cow, the cow going, and the blood just, and then it fly off and the blood just pouring down the neck of the cow. So there was no woman with her skin. It was just vampire bats who are sucking blood from chicken. They go up the behind of the chicken because they're very little feathers at the very bottom of the chicken. The top is all feathered. They would go right under there. And when they bite, they have anesthesia in their mouth. When they bite, the chicken feels just a little nonsense. The anesthetic takes over, there's no pain, they suck the blood, and they're gone. That's what, and they were doing the same thing with the cow. The anesthesia kills the area, you don't feel the pain, and they suck the blood, and they're gone.
Sukunya.
Sukunya.
Was there ever any end to the story? I mean, did they ever supposedly catch Sukunya?
There was no Sukunya.
It was just a myth.
They thought it was, it's got to be that old lady. And sometimes there's some old lady in the neighborhood always.
You kids running around talking about Sukunya.
I think she is a Sukunya. Look at her mouth. Look at her mouth. I think she's a Sukunya. But Justin, I met a Sukunya in this town. You know where I met her? Right in the old part of town where we are today. I should have gone and have you meet her. She's still there. Justin, we had to go to the courthouse to film paper from her marriage. And when I first went to the courthouse with her, I noticed, Justin, this is the worst of the worst. I'm sorry we didn't go there today. The courthouse is here, and then there's like a road and a road, and then there's a portion in the middle of the road with some trees and benches and so on. Justin, the amount of homeless people living on those benches and sleeping on the ground, lined up, it was shocking. And the first lady you meet when you make the corner to go into the courthouse is an old lady sitting on the ground. She practically lives there. And she's on this little dirty mat. She looks like hell. She looks like 90 years old. And she's got 5 or 6 mango seeds, old and dread looking, as if she didn't eat the mango today. And they're there on a pile and she's sitting. And so when I first saw those mango seeds, I said, is she a vendor? Is she selling something that I don't know what the heck this nasty thing is? And I looked at them and I said, this is weird. I looked at her a little, she didn't see me, and I went. Then months later, we went back again to the courthouse, and I see that same lady there. And now she's got a bag of real mangoes to eat, which is on the side as if it's hers, and those same nasty-looking, half-eaten mango seeds are there, and they look brown and red, not bright like what you had. And she's now taking them up and as if she's going to put them in a separate pouch. And I'm walking. And I'm like, and I finally looked at her and her eyes got me and I was dead.
You were dead.
I was totally dead. And the place is crowded. People going to the courthouse, others sleeping, others just